Hey, my name is Sam, this is Lord of the Board, and today we are going to be talking about the new game from Eerie Idle Games. Their previous game was The Old King's Crown, which is a huge, awesome, amazing crowdfunding project that just did extremely well. I was lucky enough to be a part of that campaign. I'm lucky enough to be in the rulebook of that game. That will always be one of my claim to fame. But this is their new kind of small box game that's going to be released alongside the reprint and the new expansion coming to Old King's Crown. So this is exciting times. Let's talk all about it. Annulet is a tableau building, set collection, poker style game that really has an emphasis on being opportunistic with turn order and having initiative, and also has a ton of ways to make the game feel different every time you play. But the kind of core of this game's theme is that this is a game that actually exists within the world of Old King's Crown. The characters that you play with in Old King's Crown would have played this game. And so in that kind of aspect, I feel like a lot of these games they tend to be a little bit simpler. They tend to go with the vibe of a kind of inn or bar game. And this is no different. This feels very much like a game that might be played in taverns by kind of a low lit fire with the vibe that it's portraying, the artwork, the components, all of that. One of my favorite components being these little stones here that I'll have a nice close-up shot of. This game, you are trying to collect the most crowns, which are going to be in the form of coins in this. And you are trying to collect the most by the end of the game, which is signaled by the deck of cards running out. Now, to get crowns, you are going to be drafting cards on your turn, using those drafted cards to play into a 3x3 grid and kind of build a tableau of sorts, and then use that grid in order to make sets, then choosing to score them at the end of your turns. All the while, you will be vying for control of the initiative order. You will be collecting stones, which will give you access to extra actions. However, the more stones you have, the less likely you are going to have initiative. And also, there are these big tails cards that will be in the game and will change some of the game's core rules. Now today, before we get into it anymore, all of the components are not final. There are some things that are sure going to be final, but I'm just going to be, safe and say that the art may change. I'm pretty positive art's going to be added, but the gameplay is like 90% finished. And then there is going to be just some component shifts and all of that. Check out the campaign if you're interested in seeing the most updated version of the game. But let's go ahead and talk about how it plays. I'm going to talk about how it feels to play, and then we'll end on some of my final thoughts. So on your turn, you're going to have kind of a river is what it's called, but it's going to have cards that can be drafted from. And you're going to be drafting a certain number of these cards depending on player count, putting them into your open hand. Then on your turn, you're going to be spending actions in order to place these out into your grid in order to create certain sets. Now the deck makeup is 1 through 10 in 4 suits, and then there are 3 kind of face cards, but they're called character cards. In this, there's going to be 1 of each and 1 in each color. The different suits are going to be 4 different colors or 4 different symbols: sun, moon, stars, and comets. There are also these Annulet cards that you can draft from there, and when you draft one of these are going to go straight to a scoring pile, and you're also going to get another stone, which will give you access to more actions on your turn, but also potentially make you less likely to get first in turn order. Now, once you're done drafting cards, you then have a mandatory play a card step, in which case you're going to be putting a land or character card from your kind of open hand into your 3x3 grid tableau. And you're trying, like I said, to create these sets. So let's look at some of the sets that can score. This is kind of where I say it's a little bit more like poker, and the game actually comes with an amazing little on your turn reference sheet. So if you ever forget how certain things score, you can always just look at that. But you've got a flush, which are 3 land cards whose values are not ascending or descending sequentially, who share the same suit. This is actually going to get you 1 crown. You then got the 2 crown score, which is a straight. This is 3 land cards whose values are ascending or descending in direct sequential order, who do not all share the same suit. Then you've got 3 of a kind, which will get you 3 crowns. This says 3 land cards that all share the same value regardless of suit. And then last is a straight flush, which will get you 5 crowns. And this is 3 land cards whose values are ascending or descending in direct sequential order, who all share the same suit. And these sets that you're trying to put together by placing these cards into your grid are going to be scored by column, row, or at a diagonal. But after your main action of having to place a card into your tableau, then you have all of these options for bonus actions. Some may cost these stones and others may be free. But actually, let's talk about some of those character cards, because when you're placing land cards, they can just go in an empty space on your grid. But character cards work a little bit different. They can't just float in the vast emptiness of space. They must be played onto a land card, and they are played horizontally onto that land card. The Magician is awesome. It basically makes the card under it its suit, but also count as its natural and original suit. So you have a little bit more flexibility with different set options when you have the Magician on top of a land card. The Knight, when scoring, changes the value of the land card beneath it to any single value, so you can choose what you want it to be. And then the Monarch will actually score you 2 additional crowns when it is scored as part of a set, because obviously royalty pays. And then the last thing on your turn you can do is you can choose to score any number of existing sets in your tableau, and then you take those cards, pull them out, and set them aside in your scoring pile. Anyways, play is going to continue this way, with each player doing the same until the end of a round, in which you will refresh the river, and then you will also change up the initiative order, which will be based off of who has the least stones. Now, if at the end of a round there are no cards in the river row or in the deck, the game is over and you will proceed to final scoring. And there are some interesting things in final scoring that I would love to talk about. The first being the fact that you can lose points in the game. So each player will actually be removing crowns from their supply to the bank for each face-up land or character card that remains in both their kingdom or their supply. So already it's a little brutal. You want to make sure that you're getting really good sets, because you could get your score way lower than it originally would be if you're wasting space. And as you know, you have to get through the whole deck of cards. So like I said, that initiative order gets really, really important, especially towards the end of the game, because you really want to make sure that you're getting some sets cleared out before the game is over. Okay, I think I've given you a good enough breakdown of kind of what the game has to offer and what's going on, but I want to go into a little bit of detail on a couple of aspects before we get into how the game actually feels to play. And one of those aspects is going to be those fate cards. So you actually start the game off with 3 of these fate cards in your supply. But you are also able to play these fate cards, and I already told you guys that these are basically wilds for the purposes of scoring sets, but they also give you optional abilities. So instead of using them in your scoring tableau, but you can also use it to attack your opponent by moving a land or character card from your supply to your opponent's kingdom or in their supply. And it could be placed anywhere in their kingdom. So this can kind of really mess up their scoring sets that they're trying to get figured out. And the last thing you can do with a fate card is this seize action, which, if the initiative marker is not on a fate card already, you can actually take the marker and place it on your fate card. And at the beginning of the next round, you claim the initiative marker for the round and move the fate card to your scored pile. So it's a way to just take the initiative instead of it going to the kind of stone tiebreaker. So really, really interesting stuff there. A lot of layers to everything. I already explained kind of how the characters' abilities go, but I think the last element that just really makes the game very interesting are these tail cards, these bigger cards. But these basically change the rules of the game every single time you play. And I like to see this as kind of a regional difference. So in a lot of like games that are like within world, like Sabacc in Star Wars, for example, there are different areas that play the game differently, like the Corellian Spike variant. And so one thing that I saw these as is there are kind of ways to show that the game can be changed in subtle ways, maybe depending on the region that they were at. And I thought that that was really, really a cool touch. But also, you guys know that I love asymmetry. And so this is just an awesome way to kind of change up the game. So this excites me quite a bit. And there are multiple ways that you can actually put these together. They actually give you pre-built ones, maybe for your starter game or for certain themed kind of game states. You can play with 3 to play an even heavier game, or 2 for the standard game. Winter Marches says when determining initiative, it goes to the player with the most stones in their supply instead of the least. Or the Camaraderie. Whenever you score a set where there are 3 character cards, gain an additional 4 crowns, which is awesome. High Days. When scoring, if you remove 9 or more cards from your kingdom, gain 7+ crowns. So there's all these just different ways to kind of set up scoring potential. So many different ways to change up the game, and it really is some exciting stuff. Annulet feels quite familiar, but also unique. This is, I mean, in many ways, this is a basic kind of combo tableau building set collection game. There's not really that much unique stuff happening here at the very broad strokes of it all. You are taking card, you are putting card in tableau, you are looking for sets, but there are so many different layers of the scoring and small little abilities, the timing of trying to, maybe give away a stone in order to be lower, in order to get initiative and be first pick on the river. So many like little elements that kind of pile up throughout the game that start making it feel quite a bit more unique. It's definitely more thinky the more you play. So I've mostly played this game at 2-player, and in 2-player you're drafting 2 cards on your turn, as opposed to in 3 and 4, which I've played a couple times at, you're drafting only 1 card on your turn. Both ways I very much enjoyed the game. There was also a dedicated solo mode that I was not able to try, unfortunately, but I do have full intention to, because the solo mode on Old King's Crown is fantastic. So I know that they are going to have a very great job done with the solo mode on this, and I love to see that included. But the game is very tense. It almost feels like a game of gambits, of, I guess the best way is like of poker, because like at what point in time do you score these sets? There's a lot of thought processes of timing, or like, do I build up all these sets and then spend one time just scoring all of them, or do I kind of leave my options open over the course of the game in order to kind of build up maybe an even stronger set? But then you have all that time open up for your opponents to kind of screw over your plans. But I think the best way to describe how it feels is a very elegant and simple game with an incredible amount of layers to it, almost like an onion, where as you play, you are slowly peeling back each layer, and every single game of it, you still are continuing to find more and more layers to it. I think they've done this with Old King's Crown, and now they've done this with this. Old King's Crown was a, lane battler that has so many layers to it that it became something amazing and beautiful. And with this one, this is just a simple tableau set collection game, but in all of that, they've created so many layers to it that it once again has kind of become something, kind of getting into final thoughts here, beautiful. So yes, let's just kind of move straight in. I enjoy this game quite a bit. I love how grounded it feels. A lot of these concepts are nothing that we've never seen before, but they are things that are put together in such the right way that it tickles my brain in all the right ways. Like, I love to have that fun flow of drafting card, placing it in my tableau, screwing over my opponents, because I love doing that, and then also working on my own set collection, puzzle and trying to always work on getting that next best combo of cards, because I think that's the thing that's kind of the craziest. Like, you always think that you could do a little better, and it's true. I think you can always do a little better. Those like mini optimizations are what makes it very, very fun. And on top of that, if the artwork, which I mean, the artwork already is just absolutely magnificent, but I know that when this is a final game product, this art is going to be absolutely stunning, just like Old King's Crown was. So that is kind of my preview of what Annulet is, and hopefully it piqued your interest into checking out this game. And once again, if you are interested in it, you can check out the link down below. But that is it for today's video. Let's go ahead and drop the beat.